and it hasn't been as well received on social media as what we were anticipating. There's a lot of critique and criticism around the styling.
Yeah.
And then so many question marks around the downscaling of the engine and the reduction in output.
Welcome back to another episode of the AutoTrader podcast, South Africa's #1 motoring podcast. My name is Mr. Ty Zambiri, and I am joined by two men over here who have survived an 18-hole golf course and look pretty calm after the fact. Mr. Shaw Nurse, motoring editor, and Mr. Chad Lookoff, motoring content creator, and also esteemed racing drivers and much, much more. They have a lot of accolades. How are you doing, gents?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Doing pretty decent. Chad, you're smiling disapprovingly.
I'm just wondering about that calm aspect. I can't recall when last I walked off of a golf course and was calm. I mean,
no.
You're doing it wrong then.
There's that one shot that keeps you coming back, but the rest of the time it's just infuriating. Really, that's the game.
They walk off with a smile on their face. But speaking of smiles, this past weekend, we were at Festival of Motoring, and there was a lot going on, that much is for certain. And also, a lot of cars have been unveiled and set to release in the coming months, let alone even the new year coming up soon. So let's start with one of the most popular models that we saw at the show, and that is the new Suzuki Swift. And we can see here, still keeping in with the Euro styling for the most part. And then also we have a new engine, 1.2 engine now, 3-cylinder, 60 kilowatts, 112 Newton meters, and actually a comprehensive amount of spec. We don't have pricing yet, but from what we can see, look, it's going to be another success story from what we can see. What do you guys reckon?
I think you're a little biased there.
What gave you that impression?
But the hat isn't showing it today.
But rightfully so. I don't think you're wrong. I think it will continue. We interact with our audience on social media extensively, and we try to as much as possible. And it hasn't been as well received on social media as what we were anticipating. There's a lot of critique and criticism around the styling.
Yeah.
And then so many question marks around the downscaling of the engine and the reduction in output. Especially at reef altitude. Because that's one of the things that the manufacturers almost seem to forget is that, we've got some really high altitude, thin air conditions here that really sap power, despite the fact that we're a hot climate as well, which further just reduces power. So I don't doubt that Suzuki, without a shadow of a doubt, they would have done their research into this engine and the combination. They're not going to bring something in that isn't going to work.
Yeah.
But how well the public is going to receive the changes remains to be seen.
Yeah.
It's an important car for Suzuki because Swift is their best-selling car. Definitely the most controversial in terms of looks that I've seen from a Swift. But initial impressions from the show, nice step up in quality because I think the previous Swift was a bit of a step backwards for me in quality when they were built in Japan many years ago. I remember thinking they were like a G-Shock watch. They were like really, you could feel they were solid. And they took a bit of a step back in the previous generation. It felt a little bit inferior quality, but hopping inside here, it seems like they're kind of getting back to the quality that they should be. But it remains to be seen what it's like to drive. 3-cylinder from a 4-cylinder, I do find low-end torque on 3 cylinders a bit better than a small 4-cylinder. So maybe it's a bit peppier to drive, but we'll have to wait until we get.
Do you think it's going to lose its high-strung, high-revving nature? Because
I think it will still rev.
The Suzuki engines like to be revved, and they're their happiest, like above 4,000 RPM. And they're actually pretty fuel efficient. They can sing along at 4,500 RPM all day long, and you're not hurting your pocket or the engine. And I just worry about that with a 3-cylinder.
We'll have to wait and see.
It remains to be seen.
Maybe if the low end torque is good enough, you don't need revs. So we'll have to wait and see what the car feels like.
Maybe did they make the car lighter even? Let's even just also think about that for a second.
Is it lighter than the the former one, because I anticipated being heavier because they have stepped it up and advanced it. And as Sean says, there seems to be an improvement in the quality of the materials used, which inherently brings additional weight.
And some more airbags, more features, which will in turn
and
give
CVT.
That's another thing.
Instead of AMT, like I haven't Suzuki have done everything in their power to prevent journalists from driving their AMT products, probably for the right reasons.
Thankfully so.
But CVT, they can be just as
temperamental,
as difficult for journos to get along with. So it will be interesting to drive the car. Like I said, we haven't driven the car. We don't know what it's like yet, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah, that's all speculation at this point right now in terms of driving and all that. But moving on. Okay, so this particular vehicle, we got on TikTok. If you're not following our socials, we are on TikTok, Instagram, X. I was about to say Twitter, but X, and Facebook as well. And on TikTok in particular, we did an unveiling video for the Mustang, and that clocked, as of today, if I recall correctly, 3.5 million views.
It's nearly 3.7 already. It just keeps going. It's massive.
So let's talk about it. The new Mustang. Chad,
for a reveal.
Reveal.
It's not even driving.
But it's a reveal with a sound check.
And it revs.
Okay, fair enough.
And it sounds very good.
It is a V8.
It's a V8.
Freedom.
Yeah. Sounds like freedom.
So yeah, this is the new S550 Mustang. Still the retro 60s sort of styling, fastback approach. They've done that with the last 3 generations. This is our 7th generation Mustang now. And the recipe is still largely the same. Nice, big 5-liter Coyote V8 up front, sending power to the rear wheels. They are still insisting on putting it through a 10-speed automatic gearbox, which I feel was a bit of a step backwards when they did that, when they switched from the 6-speed to the 10-speed.
Yeah.
You can get it with a manual. Whether we're going to see manual options locally is another question. I would like to.
I'd like to.
I'd like to see it because
probably maybe special order at that point.
We wanted manual Supras that came and nobody bought them. So I think that's what Ford's looking at that now.
And well, I mean, we know that there's going to be Ford. We always call them, or at least I do. The king of the sticker pack. So they're going to throw a couple of stickers, a couple of aesthetic changes, and release a sort of special edition. But what they like doing with the Mustang with that is bringing in a manual gearbox.
Yeah,
maybe
the Mach 1 Bullet, that type of thing.
That could be in a special edition. Maybe bring in 20 or so. They only bring in 150 of the GTs this year, so it is relatively limited for this first batch of right-hand drive cars for South Africa. 1.3 million rand.
Yeah, which isn't bad.
It's not terrible.
It's not bad. It's one of our more affordable sports cars in South Africa, and again, just like Swift. We got a chance to sit inside, and it's better quality. There were 4,000 of the previous Mustang generation sold in South Africa, which is impressive considering.
Yeah.
And I remember getting in that car initially, apart from the fact that it was an EcoBoost Auto Cabriolet, which just destroyed my dreams.
the trifecta.
That is the trifecta of ruined dreams.
The quality wasn't what I anticipated, but then I had to then reconsider that in America, this was the price of a Golf GTI at the time. So I had to recalibrate my brain. But having sat in this one now, there is a tangible improvement in quality. Infotainment looks like it's taken a step up, and I'm really keen to drive one.
There we go. And also, speaking of other performance cars that are making public appearances, our dear colleague, Mr. Reno, you're going to rinse me for trying to pronounce this, but the Lamborghini Revuelto. That looks pretty nice.
That is very nice.
Do you know, at the show, it was the first time I've seen one in the metal. It is massive.
Yeah.
It is huge. I did not know.
Admittedly, they put it on a plinth, so it's going to feel a lot.
Elevated.
But still, I mean, in that, if you looked just one room over, there's a Cayman GT4 RS from Porsche, and that looks compact and small. This is a big car now. But it is presence for days. One of the coolest looking cars I think I've ever seen. Just looks like a Hot Wheels toy. That's just
Did you find the plaque, the spec sheet off to the side?
Yeah.
It was there on the side. So Mr. Fenter went and showed me there because I'm quite casually, what does something like this go for? 15 and a half. there's 2.5 bars worth of options on the one that we saw.
Look, if you can look, this is the way I see it. If you can afford a 13 million rand car, you can afford a 15 million rand car. I think at this point, the money just becomes a number to these people who buy these cars.
Let me go and unearth the gold that I found in KZN. I'm not telling you where that is.
But walking around the stand on Saturday, consistently throughout the day, because we were going from our stand to the media center, editing videos, writing, or whatever. Yeah. And I would walk past the Lamborghini showroom, and there was constantly people just around that car taking videos.
3 deep.
You know, it was
permanently 3 deep.
And that's what a Lamborghini is. It's something that people aspire to because it looks so ridiculous.
Now on to a few EVs that showed up at the show, and one of them was BYD, and they showcased their Seal and their Dolphin EV vehicles, which are pretty much on sale in South Africa at the moment. And there's a Seal right there. That actually is pretty attractive.
I like this thing a lot, hey?
I saw so many of these in Australia. They are everywhere. Yeah.
And I can see why. It's I've had the pleasure. BYD's got a strange presence in South Africa at the moment.
They're here, but are they here? No, it's weird.
Not really here. It's like it's like an exclusive club in a sense almost.
It's a situationship.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, we're not quite sure. Can we get it? Can't we get it? Is it allowed to see other people? You know, we don't know what's happening here.
It's like, I know a guy.
But they were there, and when we asked them, they're just like, yeah, they're available. I'm like, okay. Great. Well, I'm the journalist.
Where can I get one who I speak to? Yeah. So I've driven Atto 3, and I was suitably impressed with that. It's, you know, the review is up on our YouTube channel, so you can go and watch it there. But I was suitably impressed. It's a slightly different approach, but it's also very traditional in the same sense. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
And with the Seal, they're doing more of the same. Their approach, I really like their approach. There's enough familiarity in the design and the structure and the layout and the control layout to make it feel like a regular, I mean, that's about a Audi A3.
Yeah, around about A3, I reckon.
A3 sedan.
Yeah.
A-class sedan size, maybe just a touch larger.
Maybe a bit bigger,
Yeah, touch, but not quite C-class A4 size, you know, so sort of like a sportback, liftback styling on it. It's attractively styled. There's such small little details when you walk around and you spend time with it that you can really appreciate. And the interior's absolutely lovely, glorious.
Very nice.
So there are 4 different versions of the Seal. If you don't know about the Seal, chances are we'll most likely get a standard and extended and maybe the performance. The Prestige model isn't sold outside of mainland China.
Well, they had a dual motor there at the show. So I'm
all-wheel drive version.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll
be a thing.
And I mean, that's proper. 390 kilowatts.
Cheapers.
670 Newton meters. 3.8 seconds 0 to 100 with like a 520 kilometer range.
Wow.
Yeah, that is BYD. It's the biggest EV car producer on the planet. Yeah. So it's a big deal. And that little Dolphin, that was the one that I sort of focused on the stand. It's a really sort of cute little hatch. And looking at the pricing, that is now one of SA's cheapest EVs.
At this point, it's about 500-600K, roundabout, more or less.
Around there, yes. Also get that gigantic screen that can swivel.
Rotate, yeah. I do like that.
Yeah, and again, very traditional. If you are trying to make the transition, BYD seem to make products that are a lot more easy to transition to from an ICE car because they don't look completely alien. Like when you get into a BMW iX, that is a completely alien environment to someone that's used to an ICE car. These are a little bit more traditional in the way that they're designed. So
not as simplified as the Volvo offerings. Not as complex as like Jaguar, some of the Mercedes-Benz products, the EQ products. BMW does it relatively
really
well as well because you can climb from an X3 into an iX3 and
it's familiar.
So familiar. Everything's where it needs to be. They haven't reinvented the wheel. And BYD...
That's what I get from this brand as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of familiarity behind it. And one other thing I quite like about BYD so far is that the nomenclature and the namings of the vehicles, it's like it's not some smorgasbord of just words put together. It's a Seal, it's a Dolphin, when it pops up in your head, you're thinking, okay, this is the vehicle. So I actually quite like how they've also managed that as well.
Until you start getting down to a variant level.
Oh, here we
so
go.
the model level is great because it's a seal, BYD seal. But then, then you've got the standard, prestige, extended. It starts getting a little more complex, but yeah.
Another EV vehicle we need to cover as well is the unveiling of the Jaiku J6. So that one is a rebadged iCar 03 from Chery. I'm actually glad I remember that. That was a bit of an interesting one. But
speaking of nomenclature,
there we go. But this is also up as well. And it's a lot bigger than I anticipated. We're thinking more like bigger than 5-door Jimny, I'd say.
You were expecting Jimny size.
Yeah.
And when you got closer to it, you're like, this is somewhere between a Defender 90 and Jimny 5-door
Jimny, yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to hog here, but I'm genuinely, I like my V8s, I like my performance vehicles, but I do like EVs, and I feel that they do have a place in our motoring landscape.
True.
I like 4x4 vehicles. I like the Jimny. I like Defenders, that type of thing as well. This sort of combines all of that, and I'm quite keen to see how close to the mark they get it, because there's so many variables. EVs are heavy.
Yeah.
So traction becomes a concern. The reason why the Jimny is so good is because it's lightweight and it doesn't need a lot of power to do what it does. That makes it great in soft sand situations and the likes.
Yeah.
This, I got a sneaky suspicion, is going to, I'm going to liken it to the G-Class I'm driving now. It's great and it's intended for off-road, but you're not going to take it off-road because it's,
Because I can see it looks like it's on all-season tires, at least in this press image. It might differ from the actual model that's going to be delivered here in South Africa and that, but it's more urban, but then it's capable of doing off-road. I mean, if you want to.
It's like most cars, right? Like my Jimny hasn't seen an off-road trail, and I think a lot of guys do take them off-road, but a lot of people just use them as the daily grind.
And they're looking for the retro cool, boxy styling.
And I think that one absolutely nails it. I had when we did that pre-launch drive of the C9 Omoda, they had the vehicle there and they let us prod around and poke around, and then they took us for a supervised passenger ride in one. It's fast, as you would imagine. 4-wheel drive EV, so there's plenty of power. But I think it's going to go down very well in South Africa. The best-selling JLR products in South Africa is a Defender. The Jimny sells very well, considering it is a niche product in terms of its appeal. And anything boxy, like the G-Wagon you're testing, people seem to gravitate towards these
it's been quite a bit lately.
Boxy off-roaders. So this is a good move by them. They just need to get pricing right, and obviously it needs to be good to drive.
Now, moving on to more consumer models, we have Volkswagen now, and Volkswagen unveils their new T-Cross, which is going to be going on sale in 2025. And we have new LED headlights, tail lights, and we've also got new infotainment systems and IQ Matrix LED headlights, new front bumper, and much, much more.
Biggest change on this car, and it's something that we complained about in the pre-facelift. Quality improvements are noticeable, because I had a look at this car in PE at the beginning of the year when they did their product announcements for the year, and then I got to sit in that shockingly yellow one that they had at the stand at the VW stand, and
attention grabbing.
It is without a doubt a better quality inside. There's better materials. VW have actually listened to customers, and I mean, it's bad to be a previous T-Cross owner, because if you bought one recently, the new one is going to be the same price, if not a couple of $100 cheaper. So sorry if you bought one recently, but the facelift is going to be a big change.
We were talking about
460 starting, yeah?
Yeah.
On about.
Yeah.
We were talking about this off air, about how T-Crosses just generally hold their value exceptionally well with, like the worst performing models only depreciating by about 10% over 4 years. How do you think the launch of this new one is going to affect used T-Cross prices, with the pricing being that close? If the pricing was considerably higher, if it was 80 to 100K more expensive, then there's still value to be had in holding on to your T-Cross.
Yeah.
But now, why would you want to buy a second-hand one for only 15,000 Rand less than a new one that has so many improvements?
There's probably going to be a hell of a run-out special on T-Cross, I would imagine, on pre-facelift models. And having looked at your article this morning, the average price for the ones that you were looking at was, in the mid 300s. The new ones are mid to high 400s to nearly 500s. So I don't think it'll affect the older ones that much, but the newer pre-facelift, I think those are going to drop by 10% or so in value, and maybe someone can get a deal there. But yeah, the new one is definitely the one to get. That's
because it remains a very popular model.
It's always going to be evergreen. That much is for certain.
Yeah, you see a lot of them on the road. It's a popular model. They retain their value well. I'm glad to hear that you say that I haven't had a chance to get up close and personal with it, but that the quality concerns, perceived quality concerns have been addressed. Yeah, and that the perceived quality is improved.
It's a big improvement. They did it with T-Roc. I remember driving pre-facelift T-Roc and going, why is there so much hard plastic in here? Then driving the facelift, and okay, they fixed it. So I think they've gone down that same road with T-Cross now.
There's a lot of going back to the drawing board I've seen with Volkswagen as of late, and I think this is a good step in the right direction. Yep. But moving on, we also saw Baic release a new X55 Plus, which has a quad exit exhaust and a few quality of life improvements, pretty much. And still looks attractively styled, pretty aggressive, and everything in between. Just a little bit more now.
I can't see any difference. When they pulled the covers off at the show, I could not see what had changed because I hadn't seen the back of the car. But there's 4 exhaust exits now. But this has been a relatively successful product for the brand in the local market. It was a bit weird, the previous car, because it didn't have any Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and that infotainment system. The whole ecosystem just made me avoid and not recommend the car because there are so many good options in this SUV segment.
At that price point.
At that price point. So why get something that's got an ecosystem that's difficult to live with? But apparently that is fixed. So it'll be interesting to drive this updated model. There's some more driver assistance systems, and pricing has remained broadly the same.
It didn't need any more driver assistance systems. It really didn't. I can promise you that.
It had everything.
Not because we anti-safety. It's just in the very typical early Chinese strive to achieve a 5-star rating. All the assistance systems are exceptionally intrusive, and too early so.
And that's the word, intrusive.
Intrusive. And then you can't turn the warning buzzers off, or every time you climb in, it resets and you have to switch them all off. And that gets a little frustrating. So if that's been addressed, which I see is happening at GWM, you switch it off, it's off. And the next time you climb in the car, it's off. It goes back on when you want it on. And then they're building in a number of settings so that you can dial it back a bit.
I've got to say, on a side tangent about the Chinese products, they genuinely take feedback incredibly seriously. Like, we complained about the Chery fuel consumption on a lot of their products, and now you can take your Tiggo 4 in for a remap of sorts, or a software recalibration to improve fuel consumption. They've taken the criticism seriously, which is good to know, because it means that they're not just dumping a product here and saying, well, deal with it. It seems like
that's what we made. Suck it up.
So I really appreciate that about what they've done, and hopefully this X55 Plus is better.
You end up getting a vehicle that is actually more akin to what you want than what you will accept. Too many manufacturers are just, that is our product, accept it.
And then we have to make a compromise.
And then maybe we'll, like with the VW perceived quality issues or concerns, maybe we'll address it if we can find ways and means. But you talk about Tiggo there, Tiggo Cross.
That's another one which I didn't expect.
One which also launched. So this one's a little bit of a strange one. They say that it's going to slot in between Tiggo 4 Pro and Tiggo 7 Pro, but it's actually replacing the turbocharged Tiggo 4 models. So it's not quite, the next generation. You're still going to be able to get the old generation. It's just another model that sort of thins out and streamlines. Well, I don't know about streamlining, but convolutes, actually. Convolutes their product lineup. But pricing bound to be competitive. It's bound to be agreeable to drive, easy to live with, and I'm sure it'll do well.
So should do fairly well. An interesting note about this car, Obviously, they're keeping the naturally aspirated Tiggo 4 Pro because that is the bread and butter for Chery South Africa. They sell, I would say, 600-700, maybe 800 of the Tiggo 4s of the 1,000 per month are the naturally aspirated models because that's where the value is in the range. But this one is so massively retooled so that it can be acceptable in a market like Australia. So it's safer. It has a crash test rating. It's got more updated interior, exterior that makes it acceptable for the Australian market. So you can be pretty sure that this is going to be a noticeable improvement in every area versus the current turbocharged Tiggo 4 Pro. So quite looking forward to driving that. It's same powertrain and stuff.
It comes back to actually what you said, so sorry, Chad, but just this thing of taking the feedback and then now implementing it in products like this now. So pretty much that. But sorry, Chad, I interrupt you.
Do you think, just random thought, do you think that South Africa is known for continuation models? Tez, Corsa Light, Polo Vivo, City Golf and that.
Yeah.
Do you think that the market demand would be there for a continuation model of current Tiggo 4 Pro while Tiggo 4 Cross comes out? And
well, I think that's what Lit is at the moment.
Yeah.
Because they brought Tiggo 4 Pro Lit at last year's Festival of Motoring, and that is kind of paying homage to the Corsa Light.
Yes.
In a more millennial speak.
Do you think that they'll continue it, that they'd keep the tooling running?
They could, in a sense, even because even now they've introduced a panel van as well for the Tiggo 4 Pro. So I think there is value in that, I can say, definitely. So I guess it remains to be seen. I mean, it's a popular model, so it would make sense to continue it. But then let's also see how the Tiggo Cross fares. That's
if
another thing.
If you can keep the pricing agreeable enough, that could be your next cheapest South African car.
Yeah,
in 2-3 years.
Your sort of passenger car bestseller for the masses. Because the SUV is going to be that in the future.
The T-Cross alternative.
Yeah, and VW are bringing a crossover. Apparently, they're going to start building one in South Africa. That's an affordable one that can take on the Tiggo 4 Pro. But I mean, we see that we've already got Tiggo 4 Pro Lit, which is already doing it, which is incredible to see.
Let the gladiator games begin. But gentlemen, we've been talking quite a bit, so unfortunately I'm going to have to wrap things up here. There's so much more we can talk about in terms of F4 24 and then also just the new models coming up and that, but we're going to have to end it here. But that being said, thank you very much for watching. If you did like this, please don't forget to do the YouTube thing and like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss another episode or review from our lovely people here. And tell us, what would you like to see next? What can we talk about next? Please let us know in the comments below. But anyways, that's it for now. Any sign off, gents?
That's it, guys. Thank you for watching. Yes.
Search AutoTrader.